All right, we'll kick into things. Tēnā koutou ko wai o, e tipu aki aho I te tirangi, ki te noho o te raki pai whenua, ki BoostedSport aho e mahi ana, ko Emily toku ingoa. So kia ora, my name is Emily. I work for BoostedSport as a sport development advisor and co-women and girls lead. Just to kick into things, we'll just do a quick karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, I aki ana te atakura, he teo, he huku, he heihu, ti hei mauri ora. So just a bit of housekeeping before we kick into things. We ask that you please mute your microphone, please turn off your video, use the chat function or the raise hand signal if you have any questions. And we'll endeavour to go for about 60 minutes. Awesome. So thank you all for being here today. This is going to be a particularly important and useful conversation that we're going to be having given the current climate. The purpose of organising this webinar was to encourage you, our sports, to start thinking differently about how you can generate income and move away from relying on traditional and inconsistent sources of funding, which is becoming increasingly problematic. We'll be hearing from 3 organisations who are redefining how sporting clubs and organisations can generate income. These organisations are SpacetoCo, Community and BoostedSport. In terms of the structure for tonight, each representative will have about 10 minutes to present and then we'll give about 5 minutes for Q&A. So a massive thank you to Ali, Doug and Shelley for being here tonight. We really appreciate you having these conversations with us. And we will kick things off with Ali from SpacetoCo. So I'll just get you to share your screen.
Well, thank you so much, Emily, and thank you so much to the Harbour Sports team for having all of us. It's just such a, well, it's great to see so many people are attended and interested in this topic. So I'm just going to share my screen. If you give me a second. Hopefully this all works. You give me a quick yes, I can see your screen, Emily.
Yep, all good to go.
Good. All right. Well, so as Emily said, I'm Elle and I work with councils and community venues like sports clubs across New Zealand and Australia to help facilitate better sharing of community spaces. And the reason I do this is because I want to help people do more together locally in local spaces. So just before I kick into who is SpacetoCo and what we do, I've got a couple of questions just to get you thinking, and these are rhetoric, so I don't feel you have to answer, but think about, for example, the last time you wanted to find a holiday home or a batch. What did you do? How did you go about that? Think about if you wanted to buy a secondhand car. Where did you start that search? Or if you're single and looking for love, what would you do? Where would you start? And the answer to a lot of those questions probably involves services that we're all super familiar with, like Airbnb or Book a Batch or Trade Me or even Match.com, Plenty of Fish. And what these have in common is they're all marketplaces. And sometimes we forget this because they're so ubiquitous that they're actually even part of our language, like I'll just find an Airbnb. And what these marketplaces are, either implicitly or in the case of ones like Match.com explicitly, is they're actually matchmakers. So they're bringing 2 parties together to solve a problem or create a connection. And so now I want you to just have a quick think about the last time you or someone you know wanted to find and book a community space, maybe for a kid's birthday party or a team meeting or a community group. I'm willing to bet that the process involved going to lots of different websites, ringing up lots of different people, checking availability, trying to work out how much it cost, possibly long forms, working out how you could get a key. And the impact of how difficult it actually is to find and book an affordable community space is actually that it stops people doing things. And what I believe is that if we make it easier for people to find and book local spaces, then this can be a catalyst for so many other good things. So it can help us meet more people in our local area. It can be great for sports clubs to build a stronger connection with the communities around them. And it can also help with things like community wellbeing and health, and provide, as we're talking about on this call, economic opportunities for spaces to create sustainable income from their space. So the idea, or the big idea of what we're talking to you about today, is what if it was as easy to find and book community space as it is to find and use other marketplaces that we've become so used to. So for example, imagine if it was as easy to find and book a sports club or a community centre, or even a barbecue in a reserve or a sports pitch, in the same way that you can go and find your dream heart-shaped potato on Trade Me. And this is a genuine listing in Auckland. I hope it went for higher than $5. So why do we need to do this? Why is now a good opportunity to think differently about how we share spaces and how we enable sports clubs to create sustainable revenue from their spaces? Well, the first thing is it's just what people want. No one actually wants to spend their time ringing up lots of different venues to understand what's available and how much they cost, and because we all would rather spend our time doing the stuff that really matters to us, be that buying heart-shaped potatoes or other things. But the second reason, and again, you're probably all familiar with this particular challenge, is that due to COVID, it's now even more important that we enable ourselves to be quite nimble and agile when things change. So if you're already taking bookings through in your sports club or sharing it with community groups, you'll all have felt the pain of, if you have processes that are lengthy, that can cause a lot of pain when it comes to issuing refunds or changing things. And that's even worse for the club, because not only is it costing you a lot of time, it's also not creating any revenue at all. So that's another reason why, when things can change quickly, when we go into lockdowns, we need to have better tools to enable people to respond quicker. So a couple of reasons why this is why it's currently challenging to share sports club space. And probably a lot of this is going to resonate with you. And the first villain that we've identified that stops committees and sports clubs sharing what they have is that the processes can just drain people's time. So if you do have a sports club with a function room, or if you share some of that space, it's probably quite time consuming to manage the inquiries as they come in, especially as the vast majority of clubs are volunteer led. It can be tough to get back to people in time. It can be time consuming to invoice them or to chase payment. And then things like bonds, so taking the money and then paying it back, working out what you need to take from them, can just be a massive drain. And sometimes it's just easier not to take the booking. So that means that we're not making it as easy for your sports club to create revenue, and also for your community to share and use that space. Because the more people that use your space, the more people will become familiar with your organisation, and the bigger the opportunity you have to grow your membership as well. So there's processes, but then there's also just visibility or marketing. So most sports clubs don't have a budget to market their space. It can be very difficult to let people know you exist. It can sometimes feel like you're invisible. So even though sports clubs are often in the heart of our suburbs and in a big playing pitch where there's dog walkers every day, no one even thinks that actually I could hire or use this space because it's not obvious to them. And as a sports club, actually one of your biggest assets is the fact that you are so local to so many people. So if our marketplace idea, or if it's to become successful, we don't just need to fix the journey of how people find and book spaces, which is an issue at the moment, but we also need to help solve some of these villains that we identified for sports clubs, to make it as easy as possible for you to share your space, so that you can get the benefits of sustainable revenue from it, increased community involvement in your club and your space, and just more people using the asset that you have, which is helpful for a number of reasons. So therefore we need to, as I said, make it easier. So, you know, as another marketplace example is, imagine if Tinder did all their invoicing manually. It wouldn't work. They wouldn't be able to scale and grow sustainably. So other things that we support sports clubs with are taking those inefficient processes and making them super easy so that you guys really don't have to do too much to share your spaces. So we developed what we've, our platform, or the SpacetoCo platform, basically with working with community clubs and organizations so that it does what you need it to do. So for example, all your bookings come through in a neat list, and all you need to do is click one tick to accept it. You don't need to touch any payments or invoice or do refunds or receipts. All of that the system does. You don't need to take and pay back bonds. You can apply a bond to a booking, and you can tell it whether to take or return the money. So there's those kind of innovations that just make it so much easier, so that you can actually take that decision to say, yes, you can share this space and therefore earn income from your space. So this obviously isn't just an idea, it's what we do at SpacetoCo. So we are this marketplace for affordable community spaces, in particular sports clubs. And we work with a number of sports clubs across Auckland. So an example here is Hororata, which has been with us for a few months. And this is how they receive their bookings. They just get every booking that comes in, it's in a nice neat list. They go through the SpacetoCo platform and they can accept that booking, knowing that all of the invoicing, the receipting is taken care of. All they need to do is tell them how to get access to the property. And what this means is all these people in this list have now found an affordable space to meet and get together locally and benefit from that space too. So it's sort of a win-win situation. Another space that we work with is Morris Rugby League Club in Mount Albert. And for example, just not even from space hire, but from having more functions in their space, they took an extra 15 grand, I think, in summer last year, just from the bar takings. So the economic and financial benefits of being involved in a wider platform of space sharing and making it easy to share spaces can create some good return for sports clubs, which of course you can use towards projects that you're fundraising for, be it, you know, property or kit or whatever that might be. So as a last example of how thinking differently about your space and how sharing your space can benefit lots of different parties, one of the things that a marketplace does is has this rising tide lifts all ships effect. So the more people that participate in the marketplace, the better everyone does. We see this with things like Airbnb, how people can create a secondary income from that. And it's the same story with a marketplace like SpacetoCo. So in this example, if we make it easy for someone in a local community to find and book a sports club, and as part of that, they decide to start up a new yoga group, well, that means that that community now has a new opportunity to meet and connect with other people locally, but it also means they have a fitness opportunity in that neighborhood. There's a yoga class that they can now attend and is probably affordable. The sports club is going to benefit because they've got more footfall coming through their door. They've got a group of 10, 20 people coming through the doors every week that they can interact with and let them know that, you know, what their sports club is, what their membership is, and that will help them grow as well and have a wider community of people supporting and invested in that space. It's also great for local businesses. So if there's a yoga class going on every week, then that coffee shop down the road is also going to get an economic lift as well, because people will likely drop by there afterwards. So this is what I mean at the beginning when I said that one matchmake between a community member and a sports club can be a catalyst for so many other good things. So just lastly, and to finish off before I take any questions from you guys. So my story or why I started SpacetoCo in New Zealand was because I was one of the people looking for community spaces and just sick and tired of the process of ringing up everywhere. This is me as part of a local theatre group. And we're always looking for rehearsal space and it's really difficult to find. And I just felt like if this is stopping me doing things together with people, then imagine how many less privileged people than I am that this problem is stopping people having access to what is, I think, a basic civic right, which is affordable community spaces. And so I came across what SpacetoCo, the company, was doing in Australia, and brought it over here, and have been my role has been basically to grow it and speak to sports clubs and other community organisations to try and get them to participate and be part of the marketplace that we're growing, so that everyone can benefit. And I think my message to you guys is that, you know, there's nothing particularly special about me, so if I can make this change, it's actually pretty easy for committee members or people working in sports clubs to get involved and to fix the processes that are stopping you sharing your spaces at the moment, and actually find a really easy way to find new people to share and use your spaces. So a couple of ideas for how sports clubs can start to create more income from their space and share it more. So firstly, and most of these are you can do with or without SpacetoCo, but firstly, as I said before, your space is sometimes can feel invisible in the community, but you actually have a lot of opportunities to make it visible with signage. You have a lot of people walking past it, especially if you're located in a sports pitch. So think about how you can engage the people that are already around your space with promoting the fact that you have space hire. There's often more opportunity to share there. Secondly, another massive asset that sports clubs have is your membership and your database. You don't just have your members, but you have your members' families. You can promote your space to them through social media, through emails, through other initiatives. You already have a sitting market of people that might want to use your space and just haven't really considered it before. A third tip is just to make it really easy and really clear about what you offer. So a lot of sports clubs won't have venue hire listed on their website or even on Facebook. They won't have clear pricing. It won't be clear what's included and not included, how the bar hire works. If you can get that basic information up online and more visible, then you're just going to make it easier for someone to book with you, because they're not having to sort of work out for themselves or do a lot more research as to what you offer. The fourth tip is, as much as sports clubs are absolutely fantastic for casual hire, like kids' parties and weddings and 21sts and that kind of thing, and that's great for bar revenue, another really good source of income is actually regular hire. So if you have, if your sports club isn't used during the day or at particular times, if you can find someone to run a yoga class, have a church group in there, that can actually equate to, you know, 5 to 10K a year in extra revenue. There are a lot of groups that just want to use the same space week in, week out, and your facilities are a good match for them. So if you can find those groups and they become a trusted user of your space, again, it has all those benefits of getting more people coming in and out of your space. And then lastly, my recommendation is to get in touch with SpacetoCo and to list on our marketplace. It's free to get started. We just charge a commission for bookings that come through our site, but there's absolutely no fee to list and see if you get any inquiries coming through. So by being a marketplace and a bookings tool, you get both visibility and promoting your space to people who are looking. You rank more in Google, but on the flip side, you also get all that automation around just one click to accept a booking, and the rest is taken care of. And we're happy to advise you on tons of other stuff around packages or how to structure pricing and that kind of thing. So it's really easy to get started. So Emily's going to send a link out to some of these resources, but our website has absolutely tons of free resources for sports clubs. So things like how to price your space, revenue streams for community spaces, sports clubs, how to turn your hub into your club into a thriving hub. So all the links will be sent out. Or if you'd like, you could just book a chat with one of our team, and we're really, really happy to talk about your space, what you want to achieve, and give you some pointers about how to get started on SpacetoCo. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that's given you some things that you could take home and do immediately to help people find and book your space. Particularly as I know it's not quite clear when we'll be able to have indoor gatherings yet, but what we are seeing on our platform is that people are now feeling more confident to book for summer. So we are now seeing bookings for kids' parties and things in particularly January. So it's definitely something that people are starting to look to as we move down the levels. So I'll pause there, and any questions or would love to hear from people.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat or turn on your camera and microphone and ask them yourself. So yeah, feel free to do that now if you have any.
I can see there's one from Emma around advertising the space. So in terms of how sports clubs can advertise their space, there's a couple of different pieces of advice I can give. The first is making it super clear on your website that you actually offer venue hire by having a venue hire tab or page on your website. Because if you think about going back to my very first question, how do people look for spaces? The first thing they do is they put kids party venue Auckland into Google if they don't have a venue in mind. So you want to try and get your website to rank for that. And then just following up, another question from Emma, the other thing you can do is list on a site like SpacetoCo, which does some of that SEO heavy lifting for you. So we rank in Google, but we also promote your spaces through things like Facebook, and we make it easy for you to promote your spaces. So by listing on SpacetoCo, it is marketing, because you're basically listing your space on a platform like Airbnb where people are looking. So we have thousands of people booking space through SpacetoCo, mainly because quite a few community centres use this as their sole source of bookings. So if you, for example, use Blockhouse Bay, community centre, you have to book through SpacetoCo, which means that the next time they want to book somewhere, they come to SpacetoCo to look for the next space. So they'll put in, you know, Northcote or wherever it is they're looking for that space. So yeah, it's both marketing and bookings.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions for Al before we move on to Doug? No. Well, I highly recommend getting in touch with Al. Her and her team will help you out if you have any questions, and if you just want to know more about the application and everything. So I highly recommend you getting in touch with her. And her contact details will be on the email and also on a number of slides as well. So you can ask her questions later on if you need.
Thank you. Feel free to ping me during this as well. So I'm on the chat, happy to answer direct questions as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
All right, our next representative is Doug from Community. So I'll get him to share his screen and we'll kick into the next presentation.
Kia ora, folks. It's great to be able to talk to so many sports people. It's a pity we can't get outside and do some of those things. However, let's push on and see if we can make some money for you tonight. Community is a program that we kind of loosely call a money machine. It's something that every one of you in every club in all over New Zealand should take part in. And over the next few years, this is a long-term project, you'll find that community could become your key fundraiser. Just where do we come from and who are we? The program originated from someone that's close to your sports organisations, John Parker, who in his time has developed the regional sports trusts way back in the 80s. He's invented a few other bright ways of doing things, and this is probably his best. It's a bit of a challenge to get it up and going, but once it's going, you'll find that this program will generate as much money as possible for clubs, schools and charities. And that's why I'm calling it a money machine. It will generate new funding and save you time and money. There are 3 parts to the program, and that means 3 groups of people. The first of those is your club members, and your club members are the key to this functioning properly. So all of your club members at some stage need to be encouraged to register. It won't cost them anything. The second is the groups, and that's you as sports clubs. Each sports club is the beneficiary of the funding. This is not something that gains funds for individuals. It gains funds for sports groups and charities and not-for-profit groups in the community. And of course, the third group in the engine are the merchants or the business people in your local community. They're the people that you rely on often for sponsorship. Then they are the people that often are within your club as members who own businesses, would love to support the club but don't know quite how to do that. So here's a machine that can help you link those three groups together. Your members, you as a group, as a sports club, and the local community, the business community. I'm going to play you a short video and you'll understand a lot more about community at the end of
Hello,
it.
New Zealand, and welcome to Community, the ultimate way of raising funds for groups, clubs, and charities. Community is a win for shoppers, the organisations they support, and merchants, combining heartfelt customer loyalty and automated fundraising. It's the modern way for these three groups to interact. Think of the common fundraising methods groups, clubs, and charities use till now: sausage sizzles, cake stalls, fee increases, online charity pages, gaming machine applications, and small local sponsorships. The need for funds will only increase as gaming machine money diminishes. There must be a better way, right? Well, now there is, and it's called Community. Community brings those selling, those buying, and the groups looking to gain financial support together in a way that's never been done before. A way that combines the best of loyalty and fundraising into one streamlined package. The best part? It doesn't cost the shoppers or the community groups anything, and the shoppers choose which community group benefits. Sounds too good to be true? But it isn't. Everyone wins with Community. So how does Community work? Groups, clubs, and charities in need of funding register with us as community groups. Shoppers register with us as community members, choosing up to 3 groups to support. Part of the registration process means supplying your community transaction information that is managed by your bank and a world-renowned transactional data provider, which means we can receive reports relating to when members transact at community merchants. Businesses register with us as community merchants, agreeing to a small annual outlet fee and a small percentage of any community members' purchases in their store and online. This could replace typical loyalty program costs. Community merchants become feel-good shopping destinations community members will seek out, knowing a small percentage of their purchases is going directly to supporting their chosen community groups. All community merchant costs are tax deductible, and community supplies tax information, so the cost to the merchant will be 2/3 of the agreed percentage. So, a quick recap: when a community member makes a purchase in-store or online, a small percentage of the resulting transaction is on its way to the groups, clubs, and charities that the community member supports. It's that simple. It's a wonder it hasn't been done before. To top it all off, Community will have a fund made up from all funds after operational costs that community groups can apply to for up to 100% of any future project or program. Imagine, no more loyalty cards. Community members loyally seeking community merchants in order to support their chosen groups and send more money back into our community. Community makes shopping feel good, as every time they swipe, dip, or tap at a community merchant store, they're doing something good for their chosen groups. The potential for Community is limitless. We see everyone being involved and all communities and local merchants prospering. So register now and support local. If the COVID-19 experience has taught us anything, it is that we need to support each other if we want our country to stay healthy and strong. Visit com-unity.kiwi to find out more and to register yourself, your community group, and your business. You can also download the Community app from the App Store and Google Play. Hello, New Zealand, and welcome.
So there we are. That's the video. It's available online, and I'll show you how to get that later on. Let's just go through a couple of those things that were mentioned. I'm sure you may have some questions, but if you just put them in the chat area, and I'll deal with them unless they are covered in the next few slides. We talked about setting up a fund. The fund is in 2 parts. 60% of all the money generated through this program goes directly back to your club. 60% of it goes quarterly. Community collects it from the merchants and disperses that to the clubs every quarter. The other 40% of the money is retained, and that's there for you to apply for major projects. And John and I have been in sport long enough to know that whenever you embark on a major project, somebody offers you a percentage of the cost of doing the job. They never give you the whole lot. Well, that's not going to happen. In that fund, that 40% fund, people can apply for the whole 100% of the cost of the project. So that's kind of where the money goes. There is a sign-on fee from the merchants, and that's what we use to keep our organisation afloat. Community is a not-for-profit organisation. The only people that work in it will get a small salary. So what are today's consumers telling us about their shopping? They tell us they're confused. And you've seen recently in the media how loyalty programs are not the greatest answer to raising money for anybody. They're confused with who to follow, how to follow them. They're not all that socially responsible. And in fact, most of the young people today and our future shoppers are telling us that corporates should give more to community. They should support their local communities. We've already got 400 or so New Zealand groups have signed up. Some of those are sports groups. Some of them are cultural groups. Some of them are arts groups. You will see those if you again sign on and look at your application. We've got lots of resources for you to use to get your members to sign up. There's some samples of those. There are flyers, there's things for your social media, there's things to put on your website, and there's printed material and posters and things like that. So how do you keep people interested? This is what every member would see on their phone once they've registered and signed up. They will see how much money they have raised when they've been shopping and how much of that has gone to the chosen community group that they have. And that's all live. It happens as these transactions occur. So they continually get reminded of how much money is going into the community. As a group, you will know how many members of your club have joined. You will also know which are the top merchants that they are shopping with. The merchant, they get something out of this too. This is a great marketing tool for merchants because they get put in touch directly with your members. And that's through a series of daily or weekly or monthly specials that they might want to post up. And those posts would just go to your members or any community member. It tells the merchant exactly how many community people are supporting their business. So unlike a sponsorship where they have no idea who's coming back in return for the money they've dished out, here they can measure that live on their app. They know how many groups have joined, how many people in those groups are shopping, and they know some of the member stats, not personal information, but things like age range, gender, and locations and things like that. This is what the app looks like on your phone when you register. That's for the community group. So it tells them exactly the information they need to know. The merchant, they get told at their own dashboard, on their dashboard, what's going on, where the money's being spent, and where the daily deals are going. And of course, the community members, they want to see where to go to shop. And so a bit like the Google search apps, they get a GPS rating whenever they're in the community, and they know which merchants and businesses they should shop with. And they too get a running tally of what they've contributed to their chosen club. Okay, just summarize up. The money that comes in from the community program is yours. It's operational money, it's not tagged. So you can spend it as an organisation on how you wish. There is an opportunity for full funding of major projects, and that's through the 40% fund that we maintain. Community groups that get stuck in early are going to benefit most. I can tell you that for sure. The ones that get their members shopping at the right places will get the money back in earliest. And of course, if you drive the program with your membership, you will benefit more. So the more people you get involved, whether they're your members or their families or their friends or people in the school community, that's the way it goes. Someone asked me, how much potential could this earn? So I did a little chart for you. This is based on the average weekly spend per household that we have got from Stats Department, and that's $1,350 a week. The average number of people in a household in New Zealand, 2.7. The average spend per person per week, around $500. The average community merchant contribution has been about 3%. So 3% of anything you spend with them, they give back to your organisation. Now, if you had 1,000 members, and that's a big sports organisation, I know, but if you had 1,000 members and 30% of your members went shopping with a community merchant, they would generate an estimated annual untagged funding of $140,000. That can be split into the 60-40, as you can see, so 70,000 of that would go untagged directly back to the community groups. If your community, your contribution to the fund would be 46,000. So that's some of the potential earnings that could happen if we make this program work for your club. Just let's see how it works. It's a free money generator. There's a one-time registration. You don't have to have cards. Once you've signed up, that's all you have to do, and it costs you nothing to sign up. And then it's ongoing forever. And as long as the merchants stay in the program, then it's a lifetime flow of funding into the club. It's not a one-off program. It's not an annual sponsorship. You don't have to keep filling out applications. It gives you real-time financial information. So people know how much they're contributing. The merchant knows how much they're contributing. They know who's involved, and they can get their encouragement by watching those numbers grow. So there you go. It's freedom from fundraising to concentrate on your sport. What do you have to do to get started? If you've got a coordinator that can round up the members and make sure that they sign up, it's easy to sign up, and I'll talk about that right at the last slide. So appoint a coordinator, educate and promote your members so that they register and they choose your club. They have the option of choosing 3 organisations, and some families will have a little squabble over this. They will choose maybe their school and their sports club. If they just chose their sports club, you get all of that money. Help us identify some businesses and merchants in your community, and report those to us or work with us to get those people signed up. The more you can encourage them to come on board, the more that you can get started, or the quicker you get started. So if you've got your phone now in front of you, point it at the screen using if you've got an iPhone, you just need to use the camera. If you've got an Android phone, you need to get a QR reader and point it at that QR code. Those codes are on all our merchandise. Or you can just go to the website www.community.kiwi, and you can sign into the website and go through it that way. You can download the app from the Google Store or Google Play, and once you're on board, away you go. I'll take some questions.
Awesome, thanks, Doug. We've got one question in the chat function. How do you know or generate local businesses onto the platform?
Okay, how do you
generate local businesses onto the platform? Okay, so I think this individual is saying, how do you, I guess, encourage businesses to sign up and be a merchant?
There's 2 ways we can do that. Either we can do that as community ambassadors, people like myself, and there's a team of those throughout the country. Contact me and I will take your clues of which merchants you want me to go through, and we can go and either approach them together, or we can do that for you. And we're offering a special for the next 5 months to help us get out of lockdown, is that any club that wants to become an ambassador can get a small commission every time they register a merchant. So there's 2 options, and if you talk to me about that, we can work through whether you guys want to do it as part of your club fundraising or whether we do it for you. So it's a matter of registering by getting the merchant to sign up and commit to a percentage of all of those transactions.
Awesome. So we've got another one. Someone's made a comment around, is there any fear that we'd be financially worse off because the sponsor knew exactly how much the clubs are benefiting off them? Is that a potential?
It's a good question. We are not in competition with sponsors, right, and sponsorships. So you keep on with your sponsorships. From a merchant's point of view, they're going to see this as possibly an alternative to sponsorship. But have a think about this. Let's say you are getting $1,000 from Fred's food shop, okay? And Fred's food shop signs up to community and says, look, we're not going to do any more sponsorships. It's not just Fred's food shop that's giving you 3% of those transactions. It's every merchant in the community that your people shop with. So you're not tying yourself to a limited sponsorship support system. You are now able to send your members out to shop widely, and as long as they shop with community merchants, they're going to make some money for you. And we know that in the future, this will probably be a bigger earner than sponsorship.
Awesome. And we had a comment from Steve, but you've already answered it in what you just said. So that's all good. Are there any final questions for Doug? Obviously, you can contact him at a later date. But yeah, if there's any burning questions that you have right now, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. As I said, it's going to be a long-term program. This sort of thing is not going to just suddenly turn on a money tree. And we're going to work as hard as we can once we get out of COVID to get this thing up and running in your community. So yeah, with your help and our guidance and the very, very innovative software, you could have a steady flow of money coming into your organisation quite quickly. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. I'll just introduce our next speaker. So it's Shelley from Sport New Zealand, and she's going to be talking to us about Boosted Sport. So I'll hand over to you, Shelley.
Thank you very much. Kia ora koutou. I will just share my screen here, and very happy to be chatting to you today about Boosted Sport. Hopefully, can everyone see that? Ah, maybe now. There we go.
Yeah, we can see it.
Fab. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully you might have heard a little bit about Boosted Sport in the last few months. Bit of a tricky time to launch a new platform, obviously, just having had the changes with COVID recently. But we actually listed a couple of new projects on the website today, so make sure you check out the website after this session as well. So Boosted Sport, what we'll cover today is what is crowdfunding, because Boosted Sport is a crowdfunding platform, and then why Boosted Sport, or what's so unique about Boosted Sport and why does it work? How does it work? So sort of all the detail of that, well, as much as we can fit in 10 minutes. And then a few success stories that I think will just give you an idea of how to use the site, and then any questions. So we'll crack straight on with it. So crowdfunding. Hopefully most of you will be familiar with crowdfunding as a concept from sites like Give a Little. So the idea is that you list a project and you're rallying your community to help you fund that project. So the idea is that it's small donations, mostly small donations from a large number of people to help fund your project. We do have some confusion sometimes that it's a fund that you apply to, but what we've created is a crowdfunding platform specifically for the play, active, rec and sport sector. So it's a platform that you can list a project on and ask people to help fund that project. The great thing is it really builds a community of givers and supporters and basically fans of yours and your project, and you'll be able to communicate with them moving forward. It also builds a great skill set, so content creation, marketing, community building, comms, media, the list goes on. So running a Boosted Sport crowdfunding campaign is actually running a mini campaign, so you do learn a lot of skills along the way. The important thing to note is that it should form part of your larger fundraising puzzle. So it's not that this would replace any specific type of fundraising. It should definitely fit as part of your fundraising efforts. So you might be using SpacetoCo or community, you know, doing the traditional sausage sizzles when we're able to do those, right through to sponsorship, grant funding. This is really part of the puzzle, and another option you can use, particularly as we've seen how vulnerable some of those other revenue streams are. Really important, of course, it's in the title, your crowd. So you've got to have your initial sort of network or crowd or audience around you. And the word spreads from there, but that's the important part, is who is going to help you fund this. And it requires a bit of energy. So it's a 4-week campaign. It needs a bit of hustle to meet your target, but it's well worth it. And that's the feedback we've had as well. So I just wanted to quickly show you, this is what the site looks like. Very simple. Obviously the platform is the key here. And you'll see the reference to the New Zealand Sports Foundation Charitable Trust. So they run the site, and then Sport New Zealand has helped in the development of the site and also in the resourcing. So I work for Sport New Zealand and support people in listing their projects and run the site. So have a little look after the session when you've got a bit more time, particularly the 2 projects listed today. One's a pump track for Christchurch, and they're going really well. They've raised over $3,000 since they launched this morning. So why Boosted Sport? Sort of how did we come up with this, and why this particular solution? So as I've said, it's a crowdfunding platform specifically for play, active rec and sport. So it is designed for our sector. Something like Give a Little is obviously very general, but we really thought there was a gap in the market for something specifically for us, and that we could have a bit more involvement in helping people list projects. So a bit of a different model to Give a Little, where you might, you know, you can list a project pretty quickly, you sort of throw it up there and hope for the best. They mostly have a success rate of around 50 to 60%. Whereas Boosted has an 80 to 90% success rate typically. So it's designed to support grassroots and community organisations in your fundraising efforts. So it's definitely designed for club level, not so much NSO level. You can run a project, but we find those real local community projects are really where Boosted Sport works, which is why it works so nicely with the other speakers tonight as well. We came up with this, or we sort of investigated this as a result of COVID-19 last year. So this was the first time we went into lockdown. We were really thinking, well, how can we support the sector? Look at alternative revenue streams and other ways to create funds, you know, given the Class 4 gaming, you know, dries up straight away as soon as there's any kind of lockdown, you know, how can we kind of help? So we did a lot of research, and what we've ended up doing is licensing Boosted Sport from the Arts Foundation, who run the very successful Boosted, which has now become Boosted Arts platform. So they've operated that for 8 years. They've raised $9 million for the arts sector. So again, it's specific to their sector. They've had 80,000 donations, over 1,200 successful projects, and they run at a 90% success rate, which is actually, you know, amongst the best in the world for crowdfunding platforms. So we have licensed our solution from them, and obviously get all the IP and learnings from them as well, which is really lucky. So how does it work? So it's crowdfunding, and what we call it is mentored crowdfunding. So I'm there to support you every step of the way. So we have a 2-stage approvals process. You enter some initial information, and then we set up a call with you and talk you through, or you talk us through your project, and we talk you through the process and the plans and the campaign you need to create. So it's donation based. Projects need to have a charitable purpose. That doesn't mean you need to be a charity to list a project, but you need to have a charitable purpose. So that means there needs to be community benefit from the project. Now, it's really important when you set your target Boosted Sport is all or nothing. So what that means is you have to hit your target to receive your funds. So if you list a project and you want to raise $5,000, if you raise $4,000, unfortunately, those donations would be refunded. So you really want to think carefully around your target and how that's going to work. The all or nothing is actually one of the reasons the platform's so successful. So it is a good thing to have that, need that momentum and to hit that deadline and that target. But obviously we need to think about it when setting the target. We have a 10% platform fee that covers the costs of the technical costs of running the platform and all the credit card fees, and goes towards obviously holding workshops and all the behind the scenes. We also do all the accounting for you. We issue tax receipts so people can claim back the 33%, and yeah, take care of all the financial side of things for you. The site has a great feature, which is match donors. So that means if you've got existing sponsors or families or local businesses that will support your project, you can actually bring them on board as a match donor. So they commit to a certain pot of money. And then if I come along and donate $50, my donations automatically double to be $100. So we find that projects that have match donors have an even better chance of success. And match donors get a little logo, or not, it's actually quite big, on the left-hand side, and they get a bit of acknowledgement. So it's a nice way to give something back to your sponsors and people that have supported you locally as well. So really important is taking time to prepare. The campaign length is around 4 weeks on the actual site, but it takes around a week or two to really prepare. You want a good plan for day 1, week 1, week 2. So you need a comms and marketing plan for the period. Are you going to pitch this to media? What's your social media strategy? That kind of thing. Luckily, to do all that, there's a great suite of resources available on the site. Plus, you can obviously call me and we can chat at any time. So we really support you through this process. So I just wanted to share with you a couple of success stories that we had as part of our soft launch phase. The first one was the Special Olympics on the West Coast. They started out with a really small target. I thought they could have pushed it a bit more, but they went out with $1,000, and they said, we don't even think there'd be $1,000 in our local community. But they hit that within a couple of hours when they launched, and then they had what we call a stretch goal. So remember, the target is all or nothing, but what you can do once you've hit your target is have a stretch goal, and the stretched goal is not all or nothing. So whatever you achieve of your stretch goal, you get to keep. So then they even went beyond their stretch goal. So yeah, really cool. And they were just so overwhelmed with the support. We actually had some great media and news stories with this group as well. Another one, and I wanted to show you this one to show you the match donor function, Sense Rugby. So this is an occupational therapy / rugby program for kids that might usually miss out on team sport. So kids with neurodiversity, for example, anxiety, ADHD, that kind of thing. So they're new in New Zealand, and they wanted to create a couple of new groups in Hororata. And so they raised $10,000 from Boosted Sport, which has enabled them to start 2 new groups in Hororata. And they talked to New Zealand Rugby about coming on board as a match donor. So you can see that New Zealand Rugby gets a bit of exposure there, so great for them as well. And just one more, because I think it's quite interesting. This was the Hororata Golf Club project. This came about as a result of the Canterbury floods, which you'll probably remember from a few months ago. So this had a real immediate need. They'd been flooded. They needed to get the golf course fixed and back up and running. So they did really well. And actually, we had a couple of projects as a result of the floods who really pushed what we thought would be possible with the amount of funds raised. These guys did a really good job of, constantly updating their page, which is part of a function you can use, linking to their media coverage. So have a look at that one if you have the chance as well and you're thinking of listing a project. So very speed overview of Boosted Sport, but really happy to take any questions now. And yeah, would love to hear any questions or feedback. And I can also speak to you about specific projects that you might have as well. Like if you don't want to mention them here, then feel free to get in touch and we can talk through the exacts of your specific project.
Awesome, thank you, Shelley. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat. I think you touched on this before, but can donors receive tax receipts in the case of charitable organisations?
That's right, yeah, so they do. So they get that immediately once they've, they get that once the project has closed successfully. So once the target's been met, then we automatically email them with a tax receipt that they can use for tax purposes. That's right, because every project that runs through the site must have a charitable purpose. All the donations are considered charitable. So we've specifically set it up like that.
Awesome. And another question, does the marketing and platform enable linkages with other social media such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter?
Yeah, so basically you use your link. So you get a specific link for your project, and then that's what you use in all your marketing efforts. On the actual page itself, there are links that you can link to your own organization's Facebook and Instagram, for example, and website. You can actually create quite a few links and quite a bit of content on the actual page. And then you'll have your specific URL, which you can create. We can create, help you create that to make it nice and short and punchy, and that people will remember.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions before we finish up? Feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself. All right. That's all good. Well, I will finish up here. I suggest and entice you guys to actually get in contact with the speakers that we've had today and just find out a bit more about the different options that they provide, even if it's just a query. Cool. So thank you so much for attending, and thank you again to our speakers. Just before I close off with a karakia, I'll just note I'll be sending out an email probably tomorrow morning just to follow up for the people who have registered. It'll include a short survey, a recording of this link, contacts for our guest speakers, and also their presentations as well, or their kind of key information. All right, I'll close us off. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki, a ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, e te whewhenga tahitanga, ki te wārua tapu, ake, āmene.